Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we're going to talk about the Manchester OPE tournament. So this tournament is kind of a big deal for set 2, as it is to date the biggest the biggest tournament that happened with the second set with Shadow of the Galaxy. It's also a tournament that was that happened on an app called Limitless that has extensive amount of data about all the win percentage, all the matchups, so it's a fantastic source of information to have a better understanding of the meta. Not only is it the biggest Shadow of the Galaxy tournament by a lot, because I think the Gen Con tournament did not have more than 110 or 120 players, or not, so it's by quite a bit the biggest tournament, and it is also one of the biggest tournaments ever organized for Star Wars Unlimited, because I believe the biggest tournament still remains the Twickenham tournaments with 222 players. So it is. I think it might be the second biggest one. Maybe the 4Ks were bigger. I don't know. But yeah, for sure for Shadow of the Galaxy, it is the biggest tournament. So it is obviously a fantastic source of information. It was played over 8 rounds of Swiss in best of 3, and we had a top 8 top cut in direct elimination that was on day 2. By the way, this, in my opinion, this tournament format is in my opinion the best you could have. 8 rounds is for this amount of player is a good amount. It means that even with a 6-2, you still have a chance to make it a top 8. And then top 8 make it so the top cut is not too long. But the good thing was that OP was giving prize for top 32, top 16, and top 8, meaning that even if you're doing top 32, you still get more than your money back on the event. So the prize was, I believe, 3 boosters for participating, plus a promo Grogu. And then you basically play on, if you make it to top 32, you get 6 additional boosters. 6 additional boosters. And if you are playing, and then you get even more prize at top 16, you get, I think, 16 boosters, I believe, like something along those lines. And then you get top 8, you get booster box, and you also were getting pins, spec pins, and then top 4 you get more booster box, and so on. So it was the prize pool was pretty good, and I really like the fact that even the top 32 you managed to get your enough prize to get more than your money back, which is nice. Another thing that they were doing, which was pretty cool, was that they were picking a random table, multiple random tables throughout the event, and in these random tables, the winner of that table would be able to get special prize. So it's a way to make the tournament exciting, especially on the lower table where people would be tempted to drop the tournament. They still have something interesting to compete with, even though they have no chance of reaching the top 32, which I think was a great idea. The tournament was organized by the company called OP, which have organized the Gen Con tournaments, and I've also organized the Twickenham tournament. So they are a pretty big, the biggest tournament organizers in the UK. And the UK, in my opinion, is the biggest scene right now. Is the biggest scene for Star Wars Unlimited in Europe, as far as I know. So going now on the metagame breakdown, as you can see, it is pretty much what you would expect. As you get Sabine, Boba, Han, Kira being the 4 most played deck. Those are what you would expect. On a tournament of this size, a lot of people play Sabine because they're playing 8 rounds in a row. You want to be playing something that is relatively aggressive, that can end round quickly, so you don't fall apart later on in the tournament. So from a stamina purpose, makes sense to be playing like an aggro deck. So no surprise to see Sabine seeing a lot of play. But the rest of the meta is pretty much what you would expect. I think Bosk is definitely saw a rise in popularity after the top 8 finish of Matt Guyver in the UKTC tournament. I think has had made Bosk more popular. Also, I found Vader has been kind of overrepresented in my opinion. Han Solo, Audacious Smuggler, a little bit underrepresented. And then the rest of the meta is what you would expect. Empress Palpatine, we saw a rise in popularity. That's probably due to Cthulhu top 2nd finish in the recent Take the Initiative tournament. Palpatine is just a deck that has some pretty solid matchup, but we'll talk more about this in a minute. So that's pretty much for the meta. For the win percentage, as you can see, Boba is the king, 58.30.8% win rate. despite with a very large sample size, because it's basically 12.35% of the meta. It's basically 173 highly competitive games, 58%. That is very, very impressive. Also, Palpatine with a much smaller sample size, but still 57% win rate is very good for Palpatine. Despite Sabine seeing the most played, Palpatine still manages to reach a 57% win rate. So I took a deeper look in the stat, and so Palpatine has still an awful matchup against Sabine. I think the Palpatine versus Sabine, the win rate for Palpatine is 27%, which is pretty awful. And the reason why it's 27% is because I think there's Michael Silk, who was playing Palpatine, had a very anti-aggro version of Palpatine, and he managed to win against 2 Palpatine, and that's pretty much. And if he was not, if it were not for him, the win percentage would be even lower. So Palpatine still has an awful matchup against Sabine, but Palpatine is so good against everything else that it kind of balances it out. So basically, it's like, okay, well, the Sabine matchup is incredibly bad, but I can win against other decks. I can win. I have such a good matchup against everything else that it really doesn't matter. The biggest counter performance, in my opinion, of this meta is Kira at 45.45%. I still believe Kira is, and especially in this meta, right? Kira has very, very good matchup against, from my experience, a good matchup against Sabine, a decent matchup against Boba, a very good matchup against Han Solo, a very good matchup against Bossk. So Kira was extremely well positioned against the top 4, even arguably Darth Vader as well. So top 5 decks, Kira would do very, very well against all 5 of the most represented deck in the meta. So it is very surprising with such a favorable meta. It's very surprising to see Kira doing so poorly. So when I was looking at, so I don't have like a firm explanation on this. My guess is that the people who picked up Kira did not really master the deck very well, because I was saying a lot of Kira players losing to matchup that they shouldn't be losing, in my opinion. And I know this for a fact because I've been playing a lot of Kira, because of course I also took part in this tournament, and I was myself playing Kira, and it turns out that they are they were just simply a lot of Kira players that lost to matchup that, in my opinion, they shouldn't be losing. So we're going into more details about this later, but we still got a Kira in top 9, and I'll go a bit more about my personal performance with Kira. I'll go a little bit more in details about this. Yeah, the rest of the meta is pretty much, of course, you got a bunch of rock decks. I didn't show the decks that were played as a one-of, because it was just too big, and it's not. There's always going to be people playing a relatively random deck in this thing. So moving on now to the top 8 and taking a deeper look at the different lists that managed to make the top 8. So first of all, we got Omar Ahmed, who was playing as Sabine, and so his deck, as you can see, is pretty much what you would expect. It's just a very standard Sabine deck. Happy to see Heroic Resolve finally coming back into the Sabine list. I think this card is really, really strong. With the 3 Rebel Assault in the main deck and a General Dodonna. So General Dodonna and Rebel Assaults are both incredibly good cards in the mirror match. And I think this deck was very well suited for the mirror match. General Dodonna is very, very strong in the mirror aggro, because players have a tendency to not defeat each other's units, meaning that both players are relatively large board, and makes Dodonna incredibly powerful. I give in like just this white buff, the +1/+1 white buff is just incredible. And Rebel Assault is also extremely strong in the mirror match, because those match very often end up in some kind of race between the 2 players. The sideboard also has some very solid sideboard cards against aggro, with 2 Sunny Peacekeeper and the Bright Hopes, and also the Daring Raids. So just I think a very well built deck if you are trying to beat other Sabine decks. Very balanced. One very interesting thing that Omar decided to do is to not play Poe Dameron, which is probably an heresy for a lot of Sabine players, because obviously Poe into ECL is incredibly powerful. But I personally, I'm gonna defend that. Because here's the thing. Something is very interesting to notice is Poe Dameron into ECL is incredibly powerful. But as soon as you've used your ECL, then Podamron becomes way too slow. Wrecker, on the other hand, has the advantage of it's incredibly strong with ECL, even arguably even better than Podamron with ECL. Granted, you can get to that point in the game where you can get up to 6 resources, but if you don't have access to ECL, Wrecker is still a very strong card because it has this immediate impact on the game that Podamron does not. And the thing is, like, you only got one ECL activation for the entire game. And there's a lot of situations where sometimes you have to use ECL super early on. You have to use an ECL on a Sabine or an A-Wing to give yourself a very good trade in turn 1 and then take over the game from that point. There's also a lot of situations where you have to go ECL K to SO to take over the game at a very specific moment. So there's going to be a lot of situations where you're going to have to use ECL early, and obviously you still have Wrecker to be using ECL later on. So it means that as a result, there's a lot of situations where you just draw Podamron and you already spend your ECL, and that feels very bad. So it does not shock me that he's not, like, I can see Podamron not making it to Sabine list anymore, for that very reason. And I think it's a very interesting call that Omar did here. It's very definitely out of the box. Obviously, there's still going to be some situation where maybe his ECL is being unspent and unused. And I think that if you're playing like 2 copies of Timely Intervention in your deck, then maybe you're okay with playing Podamron because you want to play. You're playing Podamron because you have other ways to give it ambush. But here in this example, he's playing only 1 copy of Timely Intervention. So he's like, so my take is that if you're not playing Timely Intervention, or if you play very few copies of Timely Intervention, maybe it's okay to not play Poe. For the reason I've just explained. So very interesting take on the list. So as you can see here, with no surprise, he's faced a lot of Sabine and he won against all of them. So and it's not a surprise because I think Dodonna and the Rebel Assault really give you an edge against Sabine in the Sabine mirror. So as you can see here, and in the Sabine matchup, you often tend to use ECL super early in the game with Sabine or A-Wing to get a very good trade at the beginning, and then snowball the game from there, which means that Podamron becomes a liability. So not having Podamron in this matchup is really not that big of a deal. So for the mirror match specifically, I think this is a very good call. As you can see here, he encountered 4 Sabines, and he beat all of them. So got a bit lucky on the pairings here. And he lost to Boba Fett and Alex Nesif Dakin, which was playing a Rey. Was playing a Rey yellow deck, very interesting yellow deck. So and another Boba against the Boba Green in the top 8. So yeah, very strong performance here. Yeah, overall he got some pretty good pairings, as I said. He has a good match against Sabine. So he got 4 Sabines, and then Bosk is a good matchup, and he's lost to his bad matchup. So the performance is, so he got some good pairings, to say the least. But obviously that was some smart deck build decision that allowed him to get to that point. So next we have the list of Alex Nesif Dakin, and he's playing by far the most out of the box original deck that we've seen in this top 8. And with his Rey yellow deck, which is very different from anything we've seen before. We've seen some Luke yellow decks in Spark of Rebellion, but they were very different. They were very based to try to beat hard control. They were playing Spark of Rebellion. They were extremely like anti-control. This one is more like of an anti-aggro deck. So just to notify here, we are missing 2 Arc 170 out of this list. So there's 2 Arc 170 that should be on that list. So just so you know. So the idea of this deck is you're gonna be, so I've explained a lot of times that the R2D2 Rain 2 gives you like a 2/5 for 2 that has an ability is just very powerful, and this deck basically abused that by playing also Shopper, which is another great card. They can be boosted by Rey multiple times with a red 1, and also the Cartel Turncoat, which can turn into turn 1 to a 3/4 in space. And of course, the bigger it becomes, the harder it is to kill it and redeem the bounty. So those are just very strong openings that this deck can have. And then you can basically, those units have low attack, but they can be boosted by Fleet Lieutenants and Wing Leaders to kill larger targets. So usually those kind of the low attack values are compensated by having Fleetliness and Wing Leader. We got the C3PO, so C3PO to R2D2 combo, which is cool to see that this combo is still seeing play at the highest stage of competition. AO337 is shielded, become a 3-3 shielded with Rey, and as a smuggle, which is kind of relevant. And then we got some Ezra, and then we got some smuggle cards. The Mandalorian is also an interesting one. I think in this deck it makes sense because you got a lot of cheap units that are relatively hard to kill, and making those units even harder to kill makes sense. And you get 5-6 Sentinels. The advantage of the Mandalorian over the Obi-Wan Kenobi is like it doesn't get bounced by cunning, which is very relevant in the meta where Boba Yellow is basically everywhere. And then we got some strong late game option with Luke Skywalker, Han Solo. The Confiscate, I'm actually very surprised that he's playing Confiscate. In my opinion, if it was going to run anti-upgrades, you'd be better off just running Rival's Fall if you're afraid of upgrades. Because upgrades on unit I don't think you're really scared of because you have access to 3 waylays, but upgrades on leaders, then you just have Rival's Fall, which would basically serve that purpose. So not a big fan of the Confiscate in the main deck. And then the Jetpack also to boost your units. So it's really about building up those very small units and make them like super strong, which is very interesting. Yeah, would love to give this deck a try. It's probably very good against aggro. I can't really see this deck being so good against like super control-y, super late game decks. But maybe I'm wrong. So in the sideboard we had once again more anti-aggro stuff with Village Protectors, Concordant Interceptors, and the Redemptions at top end. The Rival's Fall are more the anti-control I was talking about. So yeah, I think there's room for improvement on this list, and the basic concept is very interesting. I would love to give it a try. As you can see in this matchup here, he got a very solid 6-1 finish. Lost to Han Solo, worth the risk, but he won against Palpatine, and he won against Kira. And he won against Kira. So he also played against a lot of Sabine, which was really good for him. So yeah, very solid performance here. Next we got the deck of Samuel Short, who was playing Han Solo Blue. His deck is pretty much what you would expect from the Han Solo Blue. A large diversity of different removal. The only thing that I personally disagree with on this list is only 2 copies of Pillage. I believe Pillage is the key to win the grindier matchups, to win against Kira, to win against Palpatine. So I'm a bit surprised that he only is playing 2 copies of it. And also I think Pillage becomes stronger as you draw most of them. A lot of times, the first Pillage is usually not that big of a deal. It's often the second Pillage that wins you the game. So I'm a little bit surprised that he's only playing 2 copies for that reason. The rest of the deck is really what you would expect and not really much to say about it. Just a very well balanced and very well built list. The Carabast is just really cool in a Han Solo deck as an anti-aggro options. Just a removal that can kill aggro very well. So I think it's a very balanced list. I like it. In the sideboard, a couple of interesting things. The Mystical Reflection. I'm not sure exactly much matchup he really wants this. Is this probably against Boba maybe? Yeah, I think it's probably pretty good against Boba to get rid of the 7th Feet Defender, the Crafty Smugglers, and of course the TIE Phantom. And then we got some more stuff against Control. Interesting. So yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty well balanced list. As you can see here on his matchups, he lost to Palpatine, which is not a surprise. Palpatine simply just has very good matchup against all those kind of late game mid-rangey control decks. So it's just a bad matchup for him. Sam Wharton, I think, probably was playing a Palpatine Blue control list, a very powerful list. But he did win against Howard Williams in the later stage of the game. So this deck can definitely win against hard control. I think it all comes down to having very good discard and go on a top deck mode. And this deck does top deck very well because of the tech. If you can have tech in your resource pile as you are putting both players on top deck mode, usually the way you win this game. And then you get yeah, then he got like a lot of I would say relatively weak good matchups here. Gas Saxon, not super strong deck. Bo-Katan, same. Does like kind of give him some good stuff. Some easy wins here. And he lost to Michael Silk, who's also playing Palpatine here in the top 8. Next we got the list of Tristan Gauntlet, which was playing a Boba yellow deck. His list is pretty classic. Got the Locking TIE Phantoms in the main deck. You can see people playing less and less Boba Fett disintegrators in the main deck. Now we'll see Toro Calican kind of seeing a little bit more play. I think Toro Calican's ability is more relevant than Boba Fett's ability. And if you're not going to be playing Boba Fett's armor, it makes sense to not be playing Boba. In my opinion, after the rule change, the errata, Boba Fett Disintegrator has become a lot worse than he used to. And so now, pretty much in my opinion, the only reason to play Boba Fett over Toro, or even over DJ for that matter, is to basically play, is because it's very good with Boba Fett's armor. But if you're not playing Boba Fett's armor, I don't think you should be playing Boba Fett, or maybe you should be playing less Boba Fett, which is exactly what he did. Play once in the sideboard still. I'm wondering which matchup he wants to bring that in. Anyway, he's not playing Boba Fett's armor, which I think is a mistake. I think Boba Fett's armor straight up just improves significantly some of the worst matchup for Boba, all those super grindy decks. Yes, of course there's Rival Fall, but not every control decks play Rival Fall. We've seen Kira decks playing no Rival Fall, a lot of them don't. And if you're playing against Akira and you put a Boba Fett's armor on a Boba, and there's no Rival's Fall, and you play around Power Dark Side, there's literally nothing the Kira deck can do about it. So I actually lost a game against David Holland where he just put he just placed a Boba Fett's armor on his Boba, and there's nothing he can do about it. And I do play Rival's Fall. I mean, there were Rival's Fall I could play, but I didn't draw Rival's Fall. Like it's only 2 copies in the deck, so it's like if your opponent doesn't play Rival's Fall, doesn't draw Rival's Fall, you just win. So, and I think that opportunity is just too big to pass, in my opinion. Yeah, the rest of the deck is pretty much what you would expect. We still say the Final Showdown as a one-off. I still wonder how many times Final Showdown actually won a game. But yeah, the rest of the list, we see DL44 Blasters really making it as a mainstay in the deck. I think this card is just fantastic. DL44 Blaster is one of the big cards of the tournament. We saw so many DL44 Blasters in a tournament, and I think for good reason. New Adventures also 2 copies in New Adventure. We see a lot of Boba Yellows not playing a New Adventures anymore. This card is a strange one because a situation where it just wins you the game outright, and a situation where it's just simply not that good. A New Adventures into Fire Spray is one of the strongest things you can do in this game, in my opinion. It's just so incredibly oppressive. But there's going to be still a lot of situations where you're going to be with that New Adventures and you're going to find the right target for it. Personally, I like it, but it's really it depends on your playstyle, honestly. So as you can see here, lost in a mirror match against Joshua, was playing Boba Green, and he lost to Owaz Williams Palpatine. I think this matchup is really a 50-50. And he played against a lot of Han Solo, Sabine, yeah, and a lot of mirror match that he won against. And now so I could talk about the top 4. So top 4, we got the list of Michael Silk. Michael Silk became a good friend of mine, and he was playing Palpatine Green. So his version is, in my opinion, a little bit reminiscent to the version that Couture was playing. Couture actually went in the final of the last Technical with his Palpatine Green, and basically I love his list. I think his list is, if I was going to be playing Palpatine Green, I would definitely play this deck, a version that would be very close to this, and the reason is because I think it's the most balanced version. There's a lot of Palpatine who basically, they basically give up on the aggro matchup. They basically say, well, I'm not going to try to win the aggro matchup because this matchup is unwinnable anyway, so might as well just give up on the aggro matchup and just go for a super greedy Palpatine, and then just go to a tournament and just play the lottery. They just go, okay, well, we'll see. If I fall against Sabine, I lose. If I don't, then I'm going to win. Personally, I don't really like that approach, and I'll explain why. But here, Michael Silk decided to go for a balanced approach where he really tries to help to have a version that does well against aggro. And as you can see, there's a lot of things that he does to improve that. So he's playing the Yularen Salacious Chrome combo. He's playing Gamer 1 Guards. He has obviously he's playing the Phase 3 Dark Troopers. He's playing the Black Sun Starfighters. He has tons and tons and tons and tons of Sentinels. He also plays 1 Escort Skiff, which is a very smart choice, very strong against aggro. He plays so many green units. This guy's almost always going to have ambush. Very good against aggro. He also plays Traitorous, which is very good against aggro if you don't get PO'd. And something I've realized that early on in the meta, a lot of people were playing some anti-upgrades. But now people don't play as many anti-upgrades as they used to. Traitorous is back to be a good card. control deck should be playing 1 or 2 copies of Traders. This deck also, this tournament, by the way, was an open deck list. You would actually could check exactly what your opponent was playing before a match. That means that Michael was simply just play Traders in the main deck, and then when your opponent decides to side in some anti-upgrade, if you see some anti-upgrades, it could simply just side out the Traders. So it's just a very, very, very good idea to play Traders in this deck. Also plays Bounty Hunter Cruise, which is also very good against aggro. Allow you to search for those Sentinels. And as you can see in the latest state of the game, he plays 3 Reinforcement Walker, which is once again the most anti-aggro card you could possibly play in the top end, because this allows you to basically get some extra HP to put yourself out of range of 4 cards, I believe. So as a result, of course, he made his matchup against non-aggro deck a little worse, but I believe, of course, Palpatine is naturally a very good matchup against those decks. So Palpatine's Relentless, Devastator, only 1 copy of each, but then of course then there's the sideboard, where he can actually improve his matchups against those decks with the sideboards, with Relentless Devastator in the sideboard. Also play Leg Authority in the sideboard, excellent against aggro as well. Get rid of something, give a health bonus to something else. Very difficult to deal with for aggro. So just a very, very good deck in my opinion. Also even play Mercenary Gunship and extra copies of Gamer Guy's sideboard. So his deck is really insanely built to build aggro. And it worked very well for him. As you can see here, he won two Sabine matchups that normally are impossible to win. So just to give you guys in perspective, but let's say you're playing an all-in version of Palpatine that does no game against aggro whatsoever. Here, you got a 2 Sabine decks, you turn those wins into losses. And suddenly, you're out of top 8, you're out of top 16. So you see the difference that makes. So, very smart for him to be playing, and you see he was still able to win. I mean, granted, he hasn't played against a lot of very heavy top-end decks, just 1 Palpatine against Thomas. Against Thomas that he won. But other than this, he played mostly against like relatively low end, like relatively kind of mid-range decks, which was very good for him, obviously. So that's that was some pretty good matchup for him. Even like a Luke or Rey, those are really good matchup for Palpatines. Boba also quite good. Boba is kind of 50-50. So yeah, Gram of Taki and Sabine. So yeah, if I was gonna be playing a Palpatine deck, I would definitely be playing something along those lines, because it is really the most balanced version. It's the version of Palpatine where you go into a tournament and you say, I can actually win against aggro, and that was not an easy thing to do. Next, we got the list of David Holland. So if you don't know about David, is I think one of the best Netrunner player of all time. So it's really good TCG players. I managed to actually met him in this tournament. He's a really cool guy. He was playing Boba Yellow. I actually lost against him during this tournament as well. That's the only Palpatine deck I haven't, the only non-Palpatine deck that won against me this weekend. Anyway, he was playing a pretty classic versions of Boba Yellow. I think his version is very good. He's playing both his armor, as I said, which I think is incredible, as I explained earlier. Yeah, just very balanced, pretty good version. There's not much to say about it. He has the sideboards to mostly fight against control. Get some Gamer 1 guards for anti-aggro. Relentless Pursuit makes it to the sideboard instead of the main deck. Yeah, I just think it's a pretty solid version, so not much to say about it. It's just a very classic, very solid. So his matchup here, he lost against Tristan Gauntlet in the mirror match, and he lost to Palpatine against Owen Williams in top 4. And now we'll talk about the finalist, which was Howard Williams and his Palpatine blue deck. So I was waiting for hard control decks to finally make their entrance in the Shadow of the Galaxy meta. And turns out that, yes, they have, but under a form that I was not necessarily expecting. So Palpatine Blue, hard control, as you can see, 3 Super Laser Blast, 3 Vigilances, really great, really like hard control. Yeah. So Howard Williams and his deck. So what can we say about his deck? Well, this deck is incredibly weak to aggro. Like, as you can see, he's really playing the minimum, only playing 2 copies of Yularen, 2 copies of Crumb. if he doesn't get the Yularen into Wall Guards opening, he's gonna be in big trouble. Guys, it's got a couple of removals. Yeah, but like his deck is just incredibly weak to aggro. I think it's basically the name of the game is dodge aggro, and if you can beat aggro, if you can dodge aggro, then you're gonna be incredibly favored against almost anything. Like the amount of late game this deck has is just incredible. The 2 Avengers, the 2 Walkers, the 3 Vaders, 2 Palpatine, the 3 Super Laser Blast, tons of removals. Just extremely difficult to deal with. And the sideboards with additional Relentless, additional Fail the Dragons, Rival's Fall, and the Restock. 3 Devotion is the only anti-aggro that he has, but I think it's mostly against Boba just as a way to gain some recurrence, a way to gain HP, and it worked out very well for him. So yeah, an incredibly greedy deck. And as you can see, it paid off pretty well. So he actually met only one Sabine in the Swiss, which is pretty lucky considering that Sabine was the most played deck in the tournament. And he lost against it. No surprise. And then he basically won against everything else. He lost to a Han Solo Worst the Risk in the last round, and he lost to in the final, of course, against Joshua and his Boba Green, which is very surprising. I think the game was really close. Very grindy games. So yeah, if you hope that you're not gonna be playing against aggro, and you want to beat everything else, then that's the list you want to play. And the winner of the tournament is Joshua Freeman Birch, and is Boba Green, by far, in my opinion, one of the most innovative lists I've seen in a tournament. I mean, the Ray Yellow is also pretty innovative, but this one is really crazy. Basically, I think the idea of this deck was that Joshua was like, I want to play Boba Green, a Boba Green deck that can beat control. And this is what he came up with. And I think his build is genius. I'm gonna be honest. He did not just update the Boba Green. He completely rebuilt the deck. He rebuilt the deck from ground up. So there's still a couple of things I don't like about his version, but I'll talk first about the negative. First of all, it's a 54 card list. So Joshua is a very good. He comes from a different card game. He comes from Final Fantasy. And he's a very good player, Final Fantasy player. And maybe in Final Fantasy it's a thing, but to play more than the maximum amount of cards, but in any other card game it's not. And in Star Wars Limited is no exception to that. And the reason for this is very simple. If you're playing 54 cards, you are reducing the odds of you getting the best card of your deck. And even though the best card of your deck might be different depending on the matchups, so let's say if you're playing against, aggro, probably the best card of your deck is going to be Barrage. So reducing your chances to draw Barrage is very bad. Maybe against control, it's going to be your best card in the deck is going to be Vader or Fire Spray. By playing 54 cards, you're reducing your chances of drawing Vaders and Fire Spray. That's also very bad. So you see, this is really like the problem with playing 54 cards. Is like you are in any given matchup. There's like the only way, mathematically speaking, the only way playing more than 50 cards is a correct play is if you consider that every single card in your deck is equally as good. But it's never true. Impossible. There's always cards that are going to be better in certain matchups. So playing 4 extra cards basically reduces your chance. Granted, of course, it's not by a lot. It's only marginal. But it is definitely something that does affect negatively your deck. So I completely disagree with the idea of playing 54 cards. But at the end of the day, it's only 4 cards. So it's not going to make like a massive difference. So I'm not saying your deck is trash because you play 54 cards. I'm saying it's wrong, it's mathematically wrong to do so. But as you see, Josh here win the tournaments. Not only win the tournament, crush the tournaments with 11-0. That means outside of this little fact, outside of this detail, I think his list is genius. And I'll explain why. So basically, as I said, his deck is not a tempo deck. It's not the aggro Boba Green deck that we saw from set 1. It is a very grindy, mid-rangey deck that is really here to grind against control. But as you can see, it still maintains a very, very good matchup against aggro, but for completely different reasons. So the deck made a spectacular use of McClunky. McClunky is a card that I've tried a lot. I found the card very good, but I found it to be very inconsistent because I was only playing like Greedo. I was basically just playing Greedos and Bazine as the only way to kind of take advantage of it. But in a deck that plays Greedo, Bazine, Salacious Crumb, and Salacious Crumb, then suddenly the card becomes a lot more consistent. And also Patrolling V-Wing, then suddenly the card becomes a lot more consistent. And I think this really and with Boba Fett's ability, of course, to untap, you go Greedo, McClunky, and then play a Salacious Crumb. This deck can do this very consistently. So that's very, very impressive, very interesting, and you can do some really crazy stuff with that. You can go like McClunky, Greedo, McClunky, replay Greedo. So you can really do like a lot of crazy stuff, and this kind of interactions are incredibly powerful against aggro. Then of course against aggro you still got the Boba Fett's Fire Spray, still ability to kind of race, still ability to win HP with Reinforcement Walker, with Salacious Crumb, ability to race with Hotshot 24 blasters, the barrage of course to completely wipe up the board, the no good to me dead to block a big unit. So the deck has pretty much everything you would hope for to fight against aggro. To fight against control, the deck is also extremely well equipped. Play the Bazin's Nithal main deck. Covenant's incredibly grindy cards. Really strong with V-Wing, very strong with Cloud Riders. So V-Wing is basically kind of a toolbox. V-Wing, Cloud Riders are basically a toolbox for Covenants. Covenants also gives you more chances to find Bazine. So then suddenly you got like way more chances to find Bazine. Like your Bazines are going to be everywhere in control because you're playing effectively. You can fetch those Bazine with Vader, you can fetch those Bazine with Covenants, you can of course, even you resource the Bazine, you can smuggle them. Like Bazine is going to be everywhere in this deck. Like you're going to be playing very consistently, you'll be able to play all three of your Bazine in every single control matchup you play. That is just so incredibly insane. So there's a lot of toolbox things. That's probably the reason why he's playing 54 card, by the way, is because he wants to kind of like, he wants to emphasize, like, usually toolboxy decks, which is definitely is with Scott Veins and Vader, likes to play, those kind of decks sometimes likes to play a bit more than 50 cards to have a bit more selections. I still think it's wrong, but I guess that's my explanation. And of course, very top heavy, Vader, 3 Mauls, 2 Walkers. So this list, I think, is, I'm gonna say the word, I'm gonna drop the word. I don't think this list is good. I think this list is revolutionary. I think it's really, really strong. And the fact that there's room to improve that list by playing 50 cards makes it even scarier. So that's really cool. A lot of cool stuff going on in this list. In the sideboard here, we'll see choose side in 3 copies of the deck. Deck plays loads of very small units like Greedo, Salacious Crowns, once again, Bazine. Very insignificant units that you don't want to be dealing with. So Shoes side becomes really strong in that context. Palpatine returns, of course, incredible with the Maul Vader package. And then we got some Fail the Dragon, as expected, Fail the Dragon's Waylay, no good to me dead. Very solid list, and the fact that there's room for improvement makes this particularly scary. The whole package of Boba Fett's armor, I said it before, I said it again, Boba Fett's armor is incredible because it makes some bad matchups and turns them into very good matchups. So about the 30 HP base versus playing ECL, so obviously traditionally Boba Fett's have always been playing ECL because it's very good with Boba, the Disintegrator, it's very good. It's very good with Fire Spray, but I don't think it's necessary because in my opinion, really ECL is only worth it is really in like the more I think about it, the more I think ECL is only good if you really can make good use of it. So I don't know if this deck should be playing ECL or not, but I'm not shocked by the decision of playing a 30 HP build over ECL. I'll probably try both and see how it goes. But this is listed revolution. One thing I don't like, I forgot to mention, is I still think that, especially in this deck that doesn't play that many events, it's basically only playing like 12 events. Like, he's not really playing that many events. I don't think Bosk. I think how's it called? Lackey is better than Bosk. So I still think Lackey's Bosk. So this deck is really incredible and definitely going to be interesting to kind of get my own spin on this list. But yeah, congratulations to Josh. This is obviously amazing performance. As you can see, he won against everybody. He won against a variety of different decks. He won against 2 Palpatines, which is very, like, 2 Palpatines. Also Kira, Jack Mooney playing a Kira, and Jack Mooney had the best performing Kira with a 6-2. Kira attrition, a very good matchup, a relatively bad matchup for Boba. Once against Sabini, once against a variety of different decks, once against the mirror matches. Just an incredible performance. So, what can we learn from this tournament? The first thing we can learn is that Palpatine is the answer to Kira. If you look at the win percentage of Kira versus Palpatine, Kira had a 27% win rate versus Palpatine, which was pretty bad, which is pretty terrible. So Palpatine, if you want to beat Kira, you know what to do now. The best heart controls deck seems to be Palpatine Blue. So I've long time thought about why is heart control decks struggling so much in this set, meaning like the Iden Blues and especially the Boba Blue, which I believe is a very strong deck in a vacuum. But those decks seem to be struggling because I think Smoggle is one of the big reasons. Smoggle is really yes, those hard control decks got a lot of new tools, but there's also been a lot of counters to those decks. Mostly, as I said, the Smuggles, the Cassians, the Blasters, all those things are just very strong against control. And it feels to me that basically hard control needs better inevitability. It needs better ways to lock the game out. And Palpatine just has a better ways to lock the game out, it seems to me. So we'll see if it's confirmed in the future. I believe that if one of the advantage that a hard control like Boba Blue is going to have is Boba Blue definitely will beat Palpatine Blue, in my opinion. But that's why you were seeing the Palpatine Blues, by the way, were scared of people playing hard control. Good thing nobody was playing it, but they were very scared of it because you could see in their sideboard they would be playing like three Relentlesses and stuff to try to compensate for the matchups, because they know that if they're going into a Vigilance versus Vigilance fight, they're gonna be the dog, because Bofas is gonna be playing Bazine is gonna be playing Bounty Hunter Crew, and there's no way they're gonna win the Meal War. Third is that Boba Fett is still king. Yeah, at the end of the day, as much as we like to say otherwise, Boba Fett still dominates the meta here. We got three Bobas in top 8. He has the highest percent win rate, and it's the second most played deck. It's just keeps on performing, and the reason is very simple: it's just the best leader in the game by a long shot. This is why when I put my tier list, I always put Boba in S tier, and I don't put any other leaders in that category. I don't think there's any leaders in the game that come even close to Boba in terms of power. Because the rest of the cards is just anybody can play those cards, but you're still always going to be missing the leader, and that's the thing. And it's not only about the leader himself; it's also about the supporting cards, both its armor and of course the good old fire spray. And yeah, and moving on, we get will this new version of Boba Green be a massive breakthrough in the meta? It's kind of a question mark. Obviously, we can't draw conclusion out of one single performance, but it is definitely an 11 undefeated. With a deck that I think can be improved on. That is very, very impressive. And there's definitely going to be a lot of people picking up that deck and try to work it out. Also, by the way, it seems to be a very fun deck to play with, which is another thing I like. Rey is definitely still alive. After people started playing Han Blue over Rey Red, I really thought that Rey was going to decline. She has declined, but she's still there. We'll steal some Rey Red doing some big performance, and Rey Yellow making a top 8. So Rey is still definitely a leader, so has to be respected. She has to be respected. And then finally, I have to say the kind of overall impression about the meta is that I think the meta is very diverse, but it feels a little bit stale. So yes, we saw like some new kind of iteration, but those decks were simply just decks from Spark of Rebellion that kind of re-emerge into a new meta. most 90% of the deck that we're seeing in the new metas are basically just older decks updated. So even though, yes, the meta is pretty diverse, it still feels a little bit stale compared to the Spark of Rebellion meta, in my opinion. I wanted to do a special highlights on this Lando Calrissian, which is, outside of that Ray yellow deck, is the best performing rogue deck that we've seen in this tournament. It's a tournament that we did a 6-2 with an 20-second finish. So pretty good performance here for this land red, and we also saw some Lando decks, performing pretty well in the UKTC tournament as well. So Lando is no pushover. So this is a very, very aggressive list where there's really trying to kind of overwhelm the opponent with units. A kind of early kind of zoo. It's very similar to Sabine Yellow in a sense. But as you can see, it's not relying on 4 cards, I believe, to finish the game. It's just trying to overwhelm you with the amount of units that come into play ready between Calrissians, Falcon, and Sneak Attack. So it's a pretty cool deck. Is it better than Sabine Yellow? I don't know, but it is definitely an interesting deck. So yeah, that was basically his win record. Lost to Sabine, lost to Kira, which is not surprised. Kira is very good against aggro, but it won against another Kira here later on though, and he played against a lot of Han Solos, so maybe he has a very good matchup against Han Solo, which is not surprised because he's playing Tarkintown, so Tarkintown definitely helps so much against Han Solo, so maybe that's the reason the deck did so well. But congratulations to Dale Barker for his deck. So now I want to talk about my own deck, because I took part in this tournament and I decided to bring Kira Green, my own version of the deck, which is obviously takes inspiration from the decks that have been performing very well, but I'll of course try to adapt it to make it even better. So I decided to go with the 30 HP base instead of ECL. I believe that the deck does not have enough reason there's only like a handful of cards that really benefit from ECL, handful being usually the 3 Dark Troopers and the Gideons. That's literally a handful for 5 cards that really benefit from ECL. The other card then it becomes then the ECL is usually not so great with the rest of the deck. So I just prefer the 5 extra HP by a lot, not in almost every single matchups. So I'm pretty confident that I prefer Command Center over ECL in this deck. Also means that I get to play less heal than most other Kira decks. For example, I don't play the clients because I have a 30 HP base, so I have less pressure to have a lot of healing in my deck. And that means like this gives me space to put other stuff instead, which I really like. Other kind of originality of my list was that I was playing 1 copy of Traders. Maybe I should have played 2. I believe there's less and less people playing anti-upgrades in their deck, and every time anti-upgrades become less popular, Treacherous is going to be a great card. There's a lot of very strong 3-drops in the set, so Treacherous has been just really, really good. Every time I drew it, just a great card. The rest of the list is pretty classic. I obviously prefer Rival's Fall over Fail the Dragon. I think Rival's Fall is the flexibility of being able to kill units of any size, as well as being able to defeat leaders, and also, of course, a very important solutions to with both its armor. Actually, one of the game I lost against Boba, I would have probably made top 16 if Boba armor did not exist. I would have probably made top 16. I actually lost a game to Boba Fett's armor. I wish I would have drawn Rival's Fall. So, and the fact that Rival's Fall was more expensive was very rarely an issue, honestly. So I stand by my assumption that Rival's Fall is better than I don't play the clients because I think this card is too slow. I don't like the clients, generally speaking. And then the originality of my list comes into a sideboard. I had a sideboard which I was trying to improve the mirror match and the Palpatine matchup specifically. Mirror match because I was expecting a lot of people to be playing Kira, and of course the Palpatine deck because I knew going into the tournament was going to be the bad matchup. So this one I decided to play 2 Shoe Side in my deck. The idea, of course, is to try to sneaking like a small units, and then whenever there's a battle of very large unit, I'll just play Shoe Side, and I get to swap 2 units, and do a massive blowout like this. I managed to pull it off a couple of times. Unfortunately, it was never enough to win the Palpatine matchup. Another card that I really like in the against Palpatine is Super Laser Blast. I think the way you win this matchup is basically the moment where Palpatine steals your own units and you're so far behind. This moment where you trigger Super Laser Blast, and suddenly you kind of go back into kind of back and forth. And in this back and forth, I have a lot of stuff. I have 2 Devastator, 2 Avenger after sideboards, 2 Relentless, plus 2 copies of Palpatine's Baton to return things around. So well, I think it was pretty good. So that was basically what I tried to do. I still feel very good about the list. So my performance with the deck is a 5-3 record with a very high. So I ended up finishing 28. I think I was the 3rd best performing 5-3 in the tournament. My goal average was insane. As you can see, all my opponents were really good, excepted Connor Sabine, who did the 2-4. All the others had a pretty good strong trade, so my goal average was very, very good. As I say, right from round 1, I fought against, played against Matt Giver, which is the boss player who made top 8 to UKTC with his very strong boss list. And then just from that point on, I just played against very, very good players on and on. So I went into this tournament knowing that Palpatine was a very bad matchup. And I said, well, I hope just not many people play Palpatine. And when I saw the metagame breakdown, I was feeling pretty good because only 5%, only 9 Palpatine players out of 170 players. So I was like, okay, maybe I might play against 1 Palpatine. But unfortunately, I didn't play against 1 Palpatine. I played against 2 Palpatine. The first Palpatine encounters knocked me out of the top 8. The second Palpatine I met knocked me out of the top 16. That's just the way it goes. So pretty unlucky here because obviously whenever you are... I felt very disappointed because I really felt like I chose the right deck for the meta. The meta was very favorable for Kira. And losing to those 2 Palpatines, playing against 2 Palpatines when Palpatines only represents 5% of the meta, it's soul crushing. Honestly, it's very, very, very infuriating. But it is what it is. You go into a tournament, there's always a huge amount of... Nobody has ever won a tournament or ever went to a top 8 tournament without a bit of luck. And unfortunately, luck was not on my side, at least on the pairings. My other loss was against David Allen, who was playing Boba Yellow. So I won the first game despite him dropping 3 fire sprays on my face. Second game was won by Boba Fett's armor. He played Boba Fett's armor on Boba Fett, and there's simply just nothing I could do to prevent that. And the third game was won by TIE Phantoms. And TIE Phantoms basically came down, like he played Bazine, removed... I had a Macon opening in my opening hand. He played Bazine, took out the Macon opening, and just beat me with the stuff. I didn't find the answer to it. Even though I had quite a few answers, I'm playing the 3-2 Sentinels, but yeah, it is what it is. It's just a very unfortunate. But once again, David Allen's one of the best players in the game. So... and of course, change is always going to be a factor. One of the things about Boba Fett is that even though I think Kira is one of the best deck against Boba Fett, Boba Fett always has ways to win games, and that's the reason why it's such a great deck, because it has those kind of silver bullets from the sideboard that you can bring in against you, and those silver bullets really requires very specific answers to be dealt with. So Boba Fett's armor is a good example. So is TIE Phantoms. And if you find those silver bullets and you don't find the answer to them, you just lose the game. So yeah, pretty unfortunate. But those were some pretty. So, but overall, if I had to summarize, I'm pretty happy with my performance. I think I played very well. I feel like every game that I've lost, I don't pretend to say that I've made no misplay throughout the entire day, but I'm pretty confident in saying that I didn't make any misplay that would cause me a loss. I think that every single loss I had, there's just simply nothing I could do. On the last matchups here against Sam Wharton and his Palpatine Blue, there's literally nothing I could do to beat him. Like, I managed to beat to win game 1, but that was a miracle. It's because he was basically had a pretty aggro start, and he didn't draw well at all. But that was a miracle. I can guarantee you that, especially after Cyber, it was impossible for me to win. Really, really, like the matchup was like a 95%, something along those lines. It was absolutely crazy. So I'm pretty confident in saying that the games I've lost, there's no way I would have won them. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with my performance. Unfortunately, I'm pretty disappointed with the result. I feel like if I would have been a bit luckier with the pairings, I would have had my shot for top 16 and even for top 8. My target was to do top 16, so a bit disappointed. Thankfully, day 2 Sunday was a lot kinder to me because I managed to make it second to the super draft on Sunday. So really happy to do like a good performance in the super draft. Because the prize pool was super draft was insane. I basically, for being second in super draft, I got one booster for every win. I got a look promo. I got also the full set of aspect pins, which can be resold for a lot of money. By the way, if anybody is interested in buying the full set of pins, of aspect pins, give me a shout in the comments. And finally, a booster box on top of that. So that was pretty cool. That was a plus one booster for every win. So that was just like a lot of prize. Oh, also a game changing box and a game changing box. So the prize pool was super draft was really, really cool. So I think I got like a prize pool that was almost as good as making it to a top 8 to a main event, which is pretty crazy. So yeah, was pretty happy to make it second. I was playing Hondo Onaka green deck. No, Hondo Onaka yellow, sorry. And I managed to make Dryden Voss work. I actually managed to resolve a Dryden Voss, freeing a Gamer 1 guys. It was pretty cool to pull that off. Third comments I want to make about the tournament is obviously the community is absolutely amazing. Everybody was very friendly, and I just wanted to thank everybody for the kind words. We had an amazing time at the bar after the games. It was really fun. That's the reason I come to those tournaments. Maybe it's because I'm a content creator that people are so kind to me, but I just feel like the community is just very, very friendly. So kudos to you guys. And that was really, really a great experience. Despite my disappointing performance, I think that the game at the bar and just playing with the guys and having fun in the bar afterwards just kind of cheer me up after the main event. And also, of course, special thanks to OPE, which in my opinion is one of the best tournament organizers out there. They have everything is just top notch. The organization is great. I had some complaint about the tournament formats in UK Game Expo, but this time this problem was fixed. I didn't have time to watch the stream, but I saw that the quality of the stream was amazing. They had just very well organized events, and thank you so much. Thank to them, of course, for organizing, setting up that event, and they really set the bar very high. And the amount of insight, the amount of information, the amount of data that you get from those tournaments with all this from the Limitless website is just incredible as well. And that's it. So thank you so much for following that video. If you missed anything, about it, just feel free to put on comments. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. And if you're interested in buying my aspect pins, give me your price and give me a comments on the drop a comments, and we'll talk it out in private messages. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.